So today we'll be talking about the future of mobile engagement, how businesses are going to connect with consumers over their mobile devices. So let's start off by going over the agenda. We're going to begin by defining what we see as the mobile engagement crisis. So how businesses are struggling to connect to consumers through their mobile applications. We'll then turn to talking about chat apps. These are some of the most successful applications out there right now, and they provide immense opportunities for businesses to engage with customers over mobile. After that, we'll switch to talking about chatbots and how they can solve some of the problems which we identify at the beginning of the presentation surrounding mobile applications. And then finally, we'll discuss the future of mobile engagement, how we see businesses, or how we believe businesses are going to connect to consumers in the future over their devices. So let's start off by defining the mobile engagement crisis. So companies use mobile applications to achieve a wide variety of business goals, to build customer loyalty, to drive brand awareness, to enable sales, and increasingly to foster mobile commerce transactions. Marketing and IT professionals agree apps are either very or extremely important to their engagement strategies over mobile devices. And that's because 90% of users' time today on mobile is now spent within applications. So that means users are spending very little time surfing the mobile web. In turn, app downloads have grown at a tremendous rate, exponentially over the past few years. But at the same time as app downloads are growing, users are becoming much more discriminate about which apps they engage with. So the average number of apps used per person per month has remained relatively flat over the past few years. Not only that, but most users spend about 50% of their time in only their favorite app. That leaves precious little time for the vast majority of companies to engage with users through their mobile applications. That's in part because companies are doing a really terrible job of building highly engaged user bases. So the average app loses about 70% of its daily active users after only one day, and basically its entire user base within a few months. So that's why out of the 1.5 million apps in the Google Play Store, only a few thousand sustain really meaningful traffic. One of the main reasons why engagement is so low is because companies are notoriously bad at getting users hooked on push notifications. So over half of those surveyed by Localytics found push notifications to be an annoying distraction rather than a helpful reminder to re-engage with an application. And that's not surprising given that 35% of push notifications are generic blasts to all users. They really lack any relevancy to individuals. In addition, the overcrowded nature of app marketplaces has made acquiring loyal users increasingly expensive. So this chart shows some data from Fixu. They define a loyal user as one who engages with an app for only 3 or more sessions. So costs have risen dramatically to acquire these users because most app stores are completely oversaturated. And that makes it really difficult to gain visibility without spending exorbitant amounts of money on marketing. So this is something which we talk about in our recent report on app install ads, how businesses can advertise their ads on different platforms such as social sites. So definitely check that report out. So finally, while app stores are growing increasingly crowded and costs for acquiring users continue to rise, we've seen an overwhelming concentration in the number of downloads and revenue generated through applications among the top 1% of publishers. So 70% of all app downloads in the iOS App Store in Q1 2016 came from these top properties. But what's even crazier is that this group accounts for about 94% of the 1.4 billion in net revenue that was generated in the App Store during Q1. So that money went to roughly 623 publishers. That means that the remaining 86 million was divided among 62,000 publishers. So an overwhelming concentration in revenue amongst a very small number of players. So just to summarize, we've explained how that apps are the main way users interact with businesses within the mobile ecosystem. But at the same time, it's becoming increasingly difficult for companies to market their apps in an overcrowded app store, to engage increasingly fickle users, and finally, to monetize their services. So most every app has struggled with these problems, except for one category, which we'll jump to talking about next, and that's the chat app. So this category of app is extremely successful at garnering an impressive amount of user engagement. And that's why messaging platforms hold really great promise as platforms for facilitating interactions between businesses and consumers in the future. So let's just go back to this slide, which we showed earlier in the presentation. We know that about 90% of users' time on mobile is spent within applications. But what type of applications are they spending large amounts of time in? Well, social applications account for about 31% of that time. So that's apps like Facebook and increasingly messaging apps like WeChat, Messenger, Line, etc. So in fact, chat apps represent some of the most used apps in the world, and they drive a very high number of user sessions. Chat as a central feature is extremely sticky and good at driving mobile engagement. So messaging apps are opened about 9 times a day on average. So that's nearly 5 times the open rate of the average app. And that's not surprising given that users spend about 10% of their time on mobile devices in messaging apps. So that's beginning to rival the amount of time they spend on social networks like Facebook, and it's about twice the amount of time that they spend watching videos on YouTube. Not only are these apps used frequently, but they also have enormous user bases. So the top 4 messaging apps are actually now bigger than the top 4 social networking apps, and have a combined user base of about 3 billion monthly active users. And not only that, but chat apps aren't a localized phenomenon. A large number of smartphone users in a variety of different markets, such as China, Japan, and the United States, use chat apps on a regular basis each and every day. So what's really interesting about this chart here is the 84% of smartphone users in China that are on WeChat. So WeChat is an absolutely dominant platform within that country. It's also probably one of the most advanced messaging platforms in the world. So if you're looking to see what the future of chat apps is going to look like in the West, you should definitely check out the capabilities that WeChat offers. And this is a subject that we get into in more depth in our messaging apps report, which came out at the end of last year. So why are chat apps such a global phenomenon? It's really because chat is at the heart of the mobile experience. It's one of those universally common activities that we perform on our smartphones each and every day. And that drives very high levels of engagement and keeps users coming back to these platforms again and again. So messaging apps have realized how much engagement they're driving. And so they've decided to build entire ecosystems around those interactions. So most messaging apps have a wide range of capabilities. Users can make calls on these platforms, they can play games, increasingly they can make e-commerce purchases, they can hail taxis, and on some of the most advanced platforms in the world, like your WeChat, your Kakao Talks, and your Lines, users are even paying utilities bills on messaging apps or booking doctor's appointments. And what's really important about this for businesses is that all of these capabilities equal opportunities for companies to engage with users on mobile. So how specifically can businesses leverage chat apps to connect with consumers? Let's talk about that next. It's primarily through a new technology called chatbots. So this is a new tech that really has the potential to revolutionize the mobile interface going forward. So what are chatbots? These are programs that are powered by increasingly advanced artificial intelligence. They're text-based, and they provide services that complete relatively basic tasks for users through a chat interface on messaging apps. And most importantly, they're multifunctional. So there's a chatbot available for a wide variety of different types of interactions. So let's go through some examples. First and foremost, there are e-commerce bots. These help you purchase goods and pay for services. So just to give you an example, this is a Spring bot. This bot connects a number of merchandisers with users over Facebook's messaging app. And what I can do with this bot is I can ask it to show me a variety of different apparel items based on some different filters, such as show me some shoes within a certain range, or in a certain color, or among a certain brand. And what I can do with this in this interaction is I can not only search for products, but I can also pay for them and then have this bot ship the product to my home. So there's a clear case for bots to be used in these types of commercial interactions. Bots are also great for publishers. This is something that we cover in a lot of detail in a report that actually is coming out today on how publishers are leveraging messaging apps. So publishers can create bots. This example here is of The Economist on the Line chat app. As you can see, they can push stories to users or pictures or videos, all kinds of different content straight into the inboxes of users on messaging apps. So that's a very great opportunity for publishers to engage with users over this new channel. And then finally, there are notification bots, and these can help you track the latest film releases or television shows. So there are a lot of people out there right now who are pretty crazy about Game of Thrones. I can set this notification bot up to let me know when the newest episode has aired. So all of these capabilities mean a wide range of businesses in the near future are going to be able to leverage bots to interact with consumers over messaging apps, which is one of the main reasons why there's so much excitement around bots right now. So some, including Microsoft CEO, have even gone as far as to say that bots are going to replace most apps as the main channel through which businesses will engage with consumers over mobile devices in the future. But in order for bots to replace apps, they first need to either match or exceed the basic capabilities of applications. So it's fair to ask, can chatbots help solve some of the problems we mentioned earlier in the presentation that have stymied apps? Well, we believe that bots do have a number of advantages over applications. As we mentioned before, it's very difficult to build and market successful apps. From a user's perspective, downloading apps requires storage on your phone and that you update them frequently. And if you're looking for multiple services, that means you have to manage a lot of software on your phone. You have to download a lot of apps on your phone. And that's a big turnoff for most consumers who are trying to complete relatively simple tasks. So alternatively, bots are relatively inexpensive to build and they're easy for users to share. There's no need to download them because all their data exists in the cloud, which also means that companies, not users, can be in charge of updating them, and they can do so pretty frequently. And then finally, because they exist within chat apps, users only ever need to download one app to access a wide range of services or a wide range of bots. So if chat apps are now the new operating systems, if messaging platforms are beginning to look like your phone's home screen with all kinds of ways to interact with businesses, then bots are really now the new applications, providing a primary touch point for users to interact with businesses over messaging apps. Facebook has realized the type of opportunity that its platform presents for businesses. And that's why they decided in April to open up their API to developers and allow businesses to build their own bots to contact users. And what's so great about Messenger is that it gives companies access to this massive audience, 900 million monthly active users. So that's a number of downloads that app developers could only dream of acquiring. And that's why we've seen an explosion in the number of companies rushing to develop bots for chat apps. So everyone from CNN to Bank of America now wants to explore interactions with consumers over messaging platforms. But it's important at the same time, as we get very excited about this new technology, to keep in mind that not all bots are going to be successful. In fact, many will fail. Just think about Microsoft's experiment with Tay tweets. So I won't go into that right now, but you can definitely look that up as an example of a colossal failure with bots. Not only that, but conversation as an interface is going to require some work. So this is an example of an interaction between someone trying to order a pizza and a Microsoft bot that was developed by Pizza Hut. So as you can see, this interaction takes about 73 taps for the user to complete the order. You might say 73 taps, that's not so bad. But this is literally the same interaction between a user trying to order a pizza and a bot or a Pizza Hut bot on WeChat. So this interaction only takes 16 taps. And what this really shows is that the West has a lot to learn from WeChat in particular, which is really the most advanced platform for bot use. So companies should look east for examples of the most successful interactions between bots and consumers. The interfaces that we use today with bots are probably not going to be the ones we use in the future. These platforms provide a great example of the direction we're headed. So moving forward, how will chatbots transform the mobile ecosystem? The many million-dollar question or billion-dollar question is whether bots and conversational interfaces really do represent a major point of disruption or more of an evolution in the interface paradigm. So are bots going to replace apps or coexist with apps? So we believe that bots do provide some major advantages. So they're going to first and foremost help widen the mobile marketing funnel for businesses looking to connect with consumers on their devices. So if I'm a casual user of your service, I'm going to be much more likely to engage with one of your bots than I am with one of your apps. So let me just give you an example. I am a casual baseball fan. I'll typically go to 1 to 2 games per year. That means I'm going to be much more likely to want to engage with your bot over a messaging app that I already have installed on my phone in that type of lightweight interaction that's going to be quick and easy rather than download your application. So the people who are going to want to download your application are going to be the much more your high value users who are going to engage with your service, your business frequently. So those users go to multiple baseball games each year, who want to be served up promotions, who want to check out the latest stats on their team. So that's the user that applications will want to go after, but bots will target the vast majority of people who are going to be lightweight users of your service. Beyond that, chat is also a really convenient customer service channel. So a majority of respondents in this recent survey by Ovum noted they believed having their problems resolved over chat would be easier than speaking with a representative. But what's most interesting about this survey is that 45% of respondents said they would prefer to chat with a customer service representative because it would save them the hassle of having to use a separate service or app. So again, bots and chat apps are going to help us get around the problem of users not wanting to download more apps, this app overload problem. So what about applications, though? As we mentioned before, businesses have struggled to use apps as a way to engage with audiences on mobile. Are bots going to help replace applications? Well, while the market will continue to grow, the market for app installs is going to continue to grow over the forecast period. We expect to see slower growth in both app install volumes and direct revenue. And that's because, as we mentioned before, the app market is beginning to mature. Consumers are getting much more selective about which products they use. So this isn't terribly surprising. But what that means for app publishers is that rather than casting a wide net to try and attract and engage users, marketers should focus on acquiring more high-value users. So these users only represent about 17% of the average app's user base. Radium 1 defines this type of customer, this high-value customer, as someone who has made a purchase of some type in the past 30 sessions within the past 30 days within your app. So these users, as I said, account for a really small share of app users across different categories, but at the same time, an overwhelming majority of the revenue derived from apps. So about 85% of app revenue comes from these high value users. So this is the group that applications are really going to target because they provide a much richer experience for those users who are going to want to interact with your business pretty frequently. So with apps and bots focused on engaging different types of users, businesses should adjust their goals when leveraging these two types of technologies. On the one hand, you have apps, which help facilitate a much more rich and complex user experience. So apps should concentrate on providing advanced capabilities and building primarily customer loyalty. Meanwhile, on the other hand, you have bots, and these cast a wide net, allowing companies to engage with broader audiences of casual users. So these are much better tools for building and marketing brand awareness. So just to recap, yes, there is an ongoing mobile engagement crisis. Building audiences and garnering their attention on mobile is extremely difficult. And that's whether you're trying to connect through an app or a bot. But the good news is that with so many companies struggling to engage on mobile, those who can master more interactions or their mobile interactions can build a fairly strong competitive market advantage. So I'd just like to thank you all for attending the webinar. I'd also implore you to go check out our new apps and platforms vertical. We cover a lot of the things that we went over today in this presentation in much more depth there. So if you haven't taken a look at our research there, you should definitely go ahead and check it out.
Great, thank you, Will. So we are now gonna open it up to your questions, which they have been coming in. And if you haven't done so already, please submit your questions in the text box on the screen. It may have been minimized during the webinar. We're gonna try and get through as many as we can. So our first one here, wants to know about improving apps. So what can businesses do to improve their apps? And with everything that you said, Will, is it even worth investing in an app?
Yeah, so it's definitely still worth investing in an application. It's the the major touch point for mobile interaction. So, and at the same time, we're still in the relatively early stages of bot development. So, and that should take some time. So businesses are primarily going to continue to engage with consumers through applications on their mobile devices, particularly because users spend so much time in these properties. But at the same time, they really do need to improve, businesses really do need to figure out how to improve applications. So there are a number of things you can do there. One is to personalize apps to ensure that they really address the needs of each individual user. And that's going to take some experimentation. And it's gonna take developers to continually to treat their applications like living and breathing products. So updating them on a more frequent basis. And that's one of the reasons why we were really excited to see Apple make an announcement last week that it was shortening its review cycle for applications. So that's going to allow developers to experiment and upgrade and evolve their apps at a much faster rate.
Okay. Our next question here is about the bot ecosystem. So could the bot ecosystem become as saturated as the app ecosystem? How will chatbot developers stand out if bot stores become as overcrowded?
So yeah, I mean, this is a major problem. There are thousands of bots out there right now. It's only been a short amount of time, and there are already so many on different chat app properties. And at the same time, not all chat apps yet have dedicated bot stores. So as we've seen, Facebook Messenger right now does not have a bot store. Kik does. We expect Messenger to adopt one fairly soon, but that's not really going to address the problem of discoverability that apps face right now, because bot stores are going to have the same flaws as app stores. So we're hoping that some new tech can help get around this discoverability problem. One of the promising things about bots is that they're linkable, which means that businesses can add links to chat apps and to their bots on their mobile web pages or even their social pages, so they can put them on all their properties. And this is going to make it easier to drive users to those bots. So hopefully that'll take care of some of the discoverability problem that surrounds applications right now.
So we're getting a few questions about chatting with businesses. This question here, do people really want to mix chatting with businesses? Won't chat messages from businesses turn people off of chat and away from chatbots, especially in these early days?
Yeah, so definitely. I think that we believe that that users are going to want to chat with businesses, particularly, but only when those interactions are easier than engaging with a mobile app or with a mobile web property. So, chatbots are really going to have to focus on solving problems first in order to drive that engagement. But the person who asked this question definitely hits on something important, which is that it's very easy for businesses to turn users off of connecting or speaking with them over messaging platforms, which are really personal and intimate places where users typically talk with their friends. So it's easy to imagine that if you send too many push notifications, you can drive users away from interacting with your business. This is something which we cover in our Publishers on Messaging Apps report. And we've seen that, at least looking at publishers, less is often better over these platforms. So fewer push notifications is often better at driving engagement than sending too many. And on average, I'd say we've seen that publishers that send about 1 to 2 messages to users over the span of a week do a very good job of reminding those users to re-engage with their business. So again, less is often more in this case.
Okay, we have time for a couple more here. We have one on, a really interesting one, on brand awareness. So brand awareness is cited as a great use case for messaging apps, which is also the main use case and appeal of both TV and social platforms, which also have enormous user bases. So what makes chat apps a different experience? Is it just the one-on-one nature of them? And if that's the case, do users want that direct relationship with a brand? So once again, also questioning, do people really want to chat with businesses or brands?
Yeah. So makes sense. Television, social networks, they really do allow businesses to reach a large, broad audience of users. But those types of interactions are mainly just one-way interactions. The business is broadcasting out to a large audiences. What chat apps provide is they allow businesses to connect one-on-one, as the person asking this question said. That's a much more personalized interaction. It's automatically tailored to the user's needs because they're deciding to opt into the conversation and ask businesses directly for something. And so that is a really different type of interaction. And we think that's one of the main reasons why this type of interface really will appeal to consumers in the future, as soon as we figure out how to best display these types of interactions.
Okay, our next question here is about the performance of bots. Like you said in the early days, you talked a lot about the benefits of bots, Will, but we haven't really seen any big successes yet. Do you have a good example of a bot that's doing really well?
Good question. Let's see. So right now, again, it's pretty early days for bots. So there isn't a lot of data that's been made publicly available yet on how much engagement they're driving. But I have seen one example from the Poncho bot, which is a weather bot on Facebook's Messenger platform. And the Poncho team put out some stats on how many sessions users were engaging on average with Poncho and how long those sessions were. And as you might expect, right after F8, there was a spike in interest in Poncho, a spike in engagement, and then that engagement pretty much fell off a cliff the next few days. So that would seem to show that there was a lot of hype around the bots. But over time, the number of sessions that users engaged with and the length of those sessions with Poncho began to increase. And that points to something really unique and great about bots, and that is that they are much easier than applications to update and improve upon. So businesses, developers can do that, not exactly in real time, but they can update bots on a daily basis rather than maybe a weekly basis with applications. So what the Poncho team was able to do is they were able to learn from the conversations that their bot was having with its users and then improve upon the service. So I think that's a really promising sign that bots, even if they're not driving high engagement at the moment, in the future they can get better and new versions will continue to improve.
Okay, we're going to take one more question here. And it's about personal assistants, and uses an example that we all know, Siri. So do we know how personal assistants like Siri are affected by the introduction of such bots? Is there a case for improving apps like Siri?
Yeah, so Siri, Cortana, there are a number of different personal assistants that major tech companies have invested pretty heavily in. And these are extremely promising apps, I would say, even more promising perhaps than chatbots, because they rely on increasingly powerful artificial intelligence, natural learning processes. And tech companies are, like Facebook or Google, are learning a lot from their users and incorporating all of that technology into these personal assistants. So yes, these apps should continue to improve, and that will make them even better. But right now, we believe that these apps, the personal assistants in particular, can eventually serve as a great gateway to accessing other bots. So your first point of contact for solving an issue maybe connecting with Siri, but then Siri would direct you towards another chatbot that could solve your problem more directly. And again, that gets at the discoverability problem. It solves a little bit of the discoverability problem. If these personal assistants can serve as sort of search engines for other bots, then it can be much easier for users to find the right bots that they need and interact with them.
Excellent. Thank you, Will. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today and all of the great questions we received.